Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend Guard, your host, and I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. So Quilting Army member Gina Olive joins us, and we ask the question, can you have a business quilting if you don't have a long arm? We also get kind of philosophical of what all kinds of things mean in copyright. I'm going to get the official recording on. Can you say a quick hello?
Hi, how are you?
Perfect. All right, so we're going to talk about your groups, and let's make the list. So free motion quilting of Greater Houston, and we're also going to talk about free motion quilting as a business without a long arm, right?
Yes.
And what else are we talking about? Is that it? Are we good?
If that, I'll speak about whatever you've got. I've got a list of things that just kind of...
Tell me your list so I can put it, because I put it on the webpage, and then my law students are much happier when I have all the lists. Everything's ready.
Awesome.
Okay.
Inspired by Leah Day, Angela Walters, Jamie Wallen. He's up in the Chicago area-ish. I don't know if you've interviewed him or not, but he does really beautiful work.
Okay.
And Lori Kennedy.
I love her.
Yeah. And as of this recording, P.S., there are only 102 days until Christmas. Let's see. I do ruler quilting as well.
Cool.
And I'm incorporating Zentangle into my quilting. And I did obtain permission from them before I called it Zen Quiltangler, by the way, because it is a trademark thing.
Cool. I love that.
Let's see. My favorite part of quilting. I'm considering forming a free motion guild of Greater Houston just for free motion quilting. I know there's a long arm guild, but I can't find one just for free motion.
Cool.
So I thought that might be interesting. It seems to be such a daunting, there's so many long arms. It's, you can quilt it yourself? Why would I do that? I can't do that. Yeah. Well, I can't ice skate like Dorothy Hamill either.
Right.
Neither could she when she started.
That's true. Gosh, I can't believe we're at September 14th.
I know, right? It's just Zoom. Don't blink. It'll be November before you realize
It's true. We're giving away a piano, and they were like in June. So and they were like, well, we'll come in mid-September, which to me seemed like we want it gone now, but now it is. So I'm like, okay, it's time to call those people who are taking that piano. Yes.
All right.
Mid-September, tomorrow. Okay. All right, good. Well, we've got our list. It's super great.
Okay.
So tell me, the first thing, of course, is I know the answer to this one, but tell me your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my name is Gina Olive, and I'm calling from Kingwood, Texas, which is just north of Houston.
Just north of Houston. Does that mean that you go to the Houston Quilt Festival and all of that?
Every year. I've been going since 2010 when I first started quilting.
Nice. Love it. And what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
My first memory, I grew up with my father's parents, and my grandmother, I very seldom came home, didn't hear that Singer machine singing along. That's why for the longest time, that's why I thought they called it Singer.
Yeah.
Because it sing. But almost every day it was.
And what did your grandmother, what was your grandmother sewing?
Mainly clothes. She made all my clothes. I never knew her to make anything but garments, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I make everything but.
Everything but, right? Nothing practical. I'm like, no, not practical.
No.
Because then that would not be a hobby. No, that would not be fun. Cool. So when did you start quilting? Did you sew first or did you quilt? Did your grandmother teach you to sew? Or did she just sew?
My grandmother taught me to sew Barbie clothes. I got some stupid little glue fabric together and make Barbie clothes, and she went, oh, no, this is crap.
Yeah.
She taught me on a treadle machine, actually.
She did? Really?
She did.
I have never experienced a treadle machine, and I so want to. Because does it take coordination? Do you feel like do you have to be is it like playing the drums, or do you feel like it's not that hard?
To be honest, she made them more than I did, so
Yeah.
I can't
You
say
can't remember.
with any reality I've sewn on a treadle.
Yeah, I so want a treadle. Janome makes the guts, the machine. You can put like a new machine in a treadle machine. Isn't that weird?
Really?
You have to get an old-fashioned treadle machine to put it in. Isn't that weird? So I don't know. It seems a little overwhelming, all of it, but I do see, like, we have, with all the storms, and I think it'd be very funny, right?
Yeah.
It's like our hurricane preparedness kit, a treadle.
Absolutely.
So, cool. Well, tell me a little bit about how you got into quilting.
Well, I had made a teddy bear and outfits for the teddy bear for my niece for her first birthday, and that was 2007, I think. And then I decided I was going to make $1 million making baby doll clothes at craft fairs, and we know how that doesn't work. Then my mom said, "You know what? We were in Walmart. Look at all these. You can make aprons and sell them at craft fairs."
Yeah.
So a $1 yard apron fabric, and that didn't work. And bless her heart, she took all the time to cut it out for me because I still have a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
And so that didn't work. And I literally woke up one day and said, "I think I'm going to make a quilt. How hard can it be?"
Yeah.
And that was 9 years ago.
Did you always, so the other ones were always sort of entrepreneurial opportunities from the beginning. Did you see that with quilting as well, or did you do it as a sort of hobby?
Well, I started it. I actually made a quilt for the daughter. I think she was like 3 or something, of a coworker. I figured if I hated it, I could give it away and never have to see it again.
Yeah.
Effort, check it off the list and be done. But I made another and another and another. And I think I recently made a list, and I made almost 80 since then.
That's amazing.
Which I think is quite a bit.
How many of them do you still have?
Do I own? I own 2.
It's amazing.
The shoemaker's children never have shoes.
It's so funny because, like, I used to be that way too, but now because we're writing a book, so everything I'm writing I need to photograph before we, like, give it out. So they're just piling up. And then people are sending quilts too. So it's weird to have, like, a space with, like, because, before this, like, you'd be like, oh, I've made many, many quilts, and I have no proof of that. They're all out in the world. So
all I have is the memories and lessons learned.
Exactly. And like, oh yeah, I think I made one of those, right? Like, just in the back. Now, do you document the ones that leave, or do you take pictures of them, like, or are they just out there in the world?
I try to take pictures of everything I make, just for a personal. Oh, I made this. Or I'll put it on Facebook, look what I made, or, things like that. But I'm real bad. I'm trying to get to where I label them. And by label, I mean more than a Sharpie pen and write it on the back. Yeah. But
how important? I know that labeling is a really big, important movement, and everyone labeling, and right of attribution super important, and identifying that people make women mostly, but people make these. What are your feelings about, like, when you send a quilt off? Do you want it labeled? Do you not? I have a tendency, personally, I have to say, I don't label I'm a bit shy about labeling still. It's kind of interesting. So I'm curious and if it's changed over time.
It kind of depends. An artist wants to sign their work, and I do consider myself to be an artist. Yeah. Just because it's not, paint and a brush doesn't make me any less than one.
Yeah.
And that goes really to anybody that creates anything. And, embrace your work and sign your work.
Sign your work.
Sign and date it. And the first quilt that I made that I labeled in a long time, I actually had a label done by a friend with an embroidery machine. And it was to celebrate my friend's 50th wedding anniversary.
Aww.
And I made a paper piece double wedding ring.
Whoa. That's insane.
Not Carol, Judy Niemeyer pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful. It had like stars where the rings crossed.
Yeah.
It was about 48 inches on each side. It wasn't huge. They hung it on the wall.
Yeah.
And it had a yellow background, so I made the label on the same yellow fabric. And I had an extra paper piece arc.
Yeah.
So I just duplicated the fabrics from the front and just kind of arced it on the back.
No, that's nice. I like that. I like that. That's very nice. That's very elegant.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you love to free motion quilt.
I do.
And so you've got you've got a Facebook group, Free Motion Quilting of Greater Houston. Before we started, you told me that you're considering starting a guild for free motion in Greater Houston. Tell me like what it is about. So that's where I began. I think that's where we all begin with quilting, right? Is free motion quilting. Tell me how it began for you, and then let's talk about that. You talked about a number of people that you really like, and they're names that we know. So tell me a little bit about your adventure with free motion quilting.
Okay. I've always been the kind of person that I want to do it myself. One of the first bees I ever went to, a lady introduced herself and says, yes, I do all the quilting for the group. And I went, but I want to do my own. I don't want you to do mine. It's mine. Yeah. And I think I did Stitch in the Ditch for a little while, but I discovered Leah Day and all of her. This was, I think, still during her first year of one design a day. This was before Hello My Quilting started.
So the people that we're going to talk about are Leah Day, Jamie Wallen, Angela Walters, and Lori Kennedy. So you started doing, did you do each day? Did you follow her on the sort of, as she was starting? Explain who Leah Day is. She's been on the show a couple times, but tell me a little bit about, in case people don't know who she is. Tell me about who Leah Day
lives in, I think, North Carolina, one of the Carolinas.
Yeah.
And she looks like, bless her heart, a perpetual 14-year-old.
Yeah.
But she's got a real bubbly personality. She's a great teacher. You can watch her videos and, just have the confidence to take off and go.
Right. And she teaches a lot on free motion quilting, and she's got a whole system and products and classes, and she's really one of the big figures in this, and she was one of the first figures in this, if I'm correct, in terms of free motion quilting, like at least contemporary. Is that right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, as far as I know, like I said, I've only been doing this since 2010.
Yeah.
But what appealed to me is she was, at the time, very, I don't need a long arm. I have a sewing machine. I can do it on my sewing machine. And I'm not dissing long armers in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's just a different way to do it. And that's fine. Personally, I don't have the space.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to go through the learning curve. I know how to do what I do, and I'd rather pick one thing and do it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like old Fred Parker said.
So interesting. Well, she's remarkable. And I learned a lot from her videos and her books. Yeah. And it's interesting because it seems like, and I did free motion quilting for about a year and a half before we got the long arm. And it was those skills, like learning it, moving it, doing it, that they do translate to the long arm. But because you're still doing it, you still have to know, right? It's still muscle memory. It's still creativity. It's still sort of all of that. And something about having it in a space, the domestic space, I don't know, it's got a more intimateness to it. I don't really understand. I like that I trained on that. All right, so Leah Day. So did you do her? She has all kinds of things, but how did you learn with Leah Day?
I think the first, I don't know how I remember this, but I think the first design I ever searched, or it came up in a Google search or something, was her flame flower. And I've always liked flower and curvy and, curvy design. I'm not so much geometric. I go for more girly stuff.
Yeah.
And that flame flower, I went, wow. And I watched it and I went, I could probably do that.
Yeah.
I can do this.
You can do this. Right.
Yeah, I can do this. And, I looked through this one and that one, and I recently bought her book, the 365. I wanted a calendar, but I bought the book instead.
Yeah. She's got the 365, and it's kind of a workout. It's like you can do one each day. Now, let me ask you, of the 365 designs, how many do you think you've tried or played with in that?
Probably, when you look at when you put your personal opinions in there, I prefer this to that.
Right.
And she does a lot of geometrics, probably a dozen to 20.
Yeah.
And do you feel like books
So someone had told me, like, get good at certain ones that you like, and don't be upset, don't be freaked out by, like, learning all 365 of them. Like, choose the ones that appeal to you and sort of master those. Do you feel like that's a good strategy for free motion quilting?
Absolutely. I mean, if it's something you're considering starting free motion quilting, it can be very daunting when you see people doing feathers and, look how fabulous it is. You just go zip, zip, zip and move your hands along and you have a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And then get in there and zip, zip, zip and you have the worst rag you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So pick the one that,
So let me ask you, there's sometimes I feel like it was a beautiful quilt and then I got to it. So do you ever rip out? Do you just keep going? Like, what's your strategy about that?
No, the seam ripper definitely is one of my most used tools because my grandmother always told me if there's something worth doing, it's worth doing right. Which doesn't mean that I demand perfection. I strive for it. And if I know I can do it better, time permitting, I like to go back and do it better.
Interesting. Very
But that's just me. Somebody else, like Angela Walters always says, close enough is good enough.
Close enough is good enough. Yeah.
That's not my philosophy. But, I admire that she can do that. It's
funny. I feel like I work really, really hard for it to be very average. Like, I think sometimes people think I'm being very, like, that's the way it was with piano, too. It would be like I would practice really hard, but the same mistakes would happen over and over again. So I don't know. I'm how to get better. But I sort of, going fast or going slow, it seems like it all still is the same, which is, okay. But
do you have a stitch regulator on your machine?
I do have. Not on the domestic. No, I don't. Do you have a stitch do you use a stitch regulator? No.
I don't have one. No. I have a 8200 Quilters Challenge or Quilters something, QC, whatever seam.
Interesting.
And no stitch regulator, but it does have an 11-inch throat, which is
big throat. You need a good one, right? You need a nice big good one. All right, so Leah Day. So you started with Leah Day. Tell me a little bit more about sort of the other influences in your free motion quilting. You talked about Jamie Whalen and Angela Walters.
Right. Jamie Whalen. Jamie Whalen I found online. I was, just doing a Google search at lunch a couple of years ago at work, actually, during lunchtime. And I love he has a whole couple of classes on mystical curves. And here we are with the curves and the leaves and the flowers and oh my goodness, and hearts, and just gorgeous.
That's really
cool.
And
he does a lot of ruler work as well. I mean, and
people love him. Like, he is like they feel like they take his class or they do his books or they look at his videos and they feel like they've changed. Is that the way you felt? That, like, they feel like they've mastered it in amazing ways.
Okay. I can say that his education, his teaching is very effective, very easy to follow. As a matter of fact, last year, 2018, he was teaching, of course, and it was the first time that I had actually taken a class.
Yeah.
And because I'm basically self-taught.
Yeah.
And so I took a free motion class just to make sure I was getting everything right,
Yeah.
And I noticed that he was going to be there that day. So I thought, you know what? And I was going through some blocks and I found one. What was it? His fuchsia flower, I think he called it.
Yeah.
And I practiced it. So I brought it and showed it to him after his class was over. That was just so cool.
That's so cool.
I said, this is where I drew it. And, and this is what I did. And he seemed to be like, well, hey, that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. That's really fun. That must have been exciting to be able to show him when you had learned it from him. Very cool. All right. So what about, getting back to the list, Angela Walters. How do you feel about Angela Walters?
I am so disappointed that her Midnight Quilt Show is being discontinued.
I know. I was so surprised about that, right? I liked the Midnight Quilt Show. It was funny.
But she's, again, very bubbly, very encouraging, all you have to do is this and this and this.
Yes.
And, she's very encouraging. I like how during her free motion quilt-alongs, she does it on both the domestic machine and a long arm.
Yeah, I like that too. So I like that quite a bit.
Her client base.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like she's got a particular style, and it will be interesting, like in the future, how many quilts in the world as the museums go, like, and this was an Angela Walters quilt because there's so many people and there's her stuff has a certain look that I think. Don't you think there's a kind of way she's doing it that looks a certain way, and I'm totally in love with it. We haven't interviewed her, but I'm totally madly in love. But
you did it long time ago.
No, I didn't do Angela. No, I haven't done her. Leah Day I have, but I haven't Angela Walters. No. So what about Lori Kennedy? I love Lori Kennedy. Lori Kennedy's different than the other ones, right?
Lori Kennedy is really good about taking a picture and converting it to a quilt motif.
Yeah, her stuff is like so adorable. Like, so if you're looking for like how to make a spider, right, or other things, then she is really great at teaching you how to kind of sketch, free motion sketching.
Absolutely.
Would you agree? That kind of, yeah, I think she's amazing too. I think we haven't interviewed her. I've had conversations with her on Facebook and things, but we haven't interviewed her. I think her stuff is incredible. I made her little spiders. I also feel like I got more confidence in like, I had to make a Harry Potter quilt. So then because I had been practicing with her stuff, I could think through how to make glasses or a wand, or, you know, like it gives you kind of, it starts to make you think about how to use free motion as really as sketching, which I think is pretty interesting. So how do you use her stuff? Tell me a little bit about what you think about hers.
Well, you know, quilting designs, it depends on, you know, the design of the quilt, actually. Like I'm finishing a quilt for auction right now that's got a ballerina in the center of a big stage.
That's great.
So, you know, and I chose for the flooring, I got a brown ombre, so it gives depth to the stage. And I'm doing the planking on the board. So I did some Angela Walters inspired, just kind of wavy lines to look like wood grain. And I threw a few, knot holes in there.
Yeah, that's great.
And, you know, I'm not going to really heavily quilt it. The quilting is not going to be the focal point of it.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is that it depends on the quilt. Now, if I were going to make a quilt for a little boy, say, I might want to put choo-choo trains or, you know, birds or bumblebees or sailboats or whatever. It just depends on the theme of the quilt.
Yeah.
I'm making another quilt. I call it Stars on the Water. And I'm giving it to a recycling group here in Kingwood so they can raffle off and raise money. And the quilting I'm doing on that, it's all these different stars. It was actually based on a pattern. Oh, and here it is. It was based on a pattern by David Gilliland's called Floating Star Relations.
Yeah, right.
I looked at that and I went, that's kind of cool. So I made some Lemoyne stars. I did them strip pieced. Boy, what a nightmare that was. So thank you to Lori Robinson for helping me knock those out. And for the most part. Anyway, so I'm going to quilt a lot of sea creatures in that quilt. It's on a turquoise background, so it's supposed to represent all the plastics in the ocean.
Got it.
So I've got like a seahorse and a mermaid and a dolphin.
Very cool. All right, so tell me a little bit about, so we've done free motion quilting. Tell me, okay, ruler work. So I'm going to say I hate it. I hate ruler work. I'm not sure, like, tell me how I can like it more. I find, sometimes it's okay. I just find it, I don't know if I'm coordinated enough for ruler work. Tell me, like, your strategy with ruler work and any good tips for people who are just beginning with ruler work. You got to have the right foot, and you got to have the right rulers. Then you got to figure out, like, you know, you got to move it, and there's a lot of coordination involved with ruler work.
There is. First of all, I don't know if I can say brand names or not. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. Westerly.
Yeah, we haven't aired theirs, but we interviewed them a long time ago. Right.
Okay. Westerly has a starter sampler set. It's got 6 rulers in it.
Yeah.
And if you buy it at a local quilt store, more often than not, I bought it anyway, they offer free classes and you can take them as many times as you need to. Yeah. On how to use each ruler. Yeah. And it's one class and it covers all the rulers. So,
how often, when you're using, like let's say you're doing lines or doing something like that, are you using rulers all the time in terms of like, how dependent are you, or how much do you use rulers in your free motion quilting?
If I want to, like the ballerina quilt I spoke of earlier, doing the planks for the hardwood floors, I used a straight edge for that all the way up.
All the way up, yeah. Because if you can't do it, it's just too hard to do it otherwise.
No, if you're looking for something that looks organic, then stay away from the rulers. If you want something that looks like a straight line, then
Yeah.
use a ruler. But
my
if you're
goal
going to use
is
a ruler, definitely do the feet.
that's on my list for 2020. Is I got to get a little bit more comfortable with rulers. I've played with them a bit. They're, the ones that are hard are the ones that like you have to have them in the middle and then they kind of spin. Those seem impossible. The spinning
Those
thing
are actually really cool. The key to that is take a chalk marker or whatever. I know Westerly sells a template and it's just a big asterisk.
Yeah.
And, use a pounce pad or trace it or however you want to mark your piece.
Yeah.
Then the ruler, it'll have like a bell shape, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And it'll have all these registration lines and you match it up.
I see.
And you put a thumbtack under the center and there's a hole in the ruler for that.
Yes, there is a hole in the ruler and it comes with a thumbtack. And I was like, so do you put the thumbtack up so that the pointy stuff is up? Which way do you put? That's what you do.
The head of the thumbtack is underneath the quilt. And then you put the ruler on there. And I learned that in the class that I took.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
But Wesley also sells a book that's designed to replace that class because not everybody, people that live in a more rural community,
right?
Not everybody has access to a teacher that'll teach that class. Yeah. So the book is designed to replace.
Well, and you also live in Houston, so we have to talk about Houston. I mean, Houston is like ground zero for quilting in some way because you guys get the festival every year. You've got a lot of shops. Like you kind of have the world at your fingertips. And so it's not really easy for us to compare you to everybody else because you really do have like whatever you need comes to you every year. And then you've got a strong community in addition to that. Is that right? Is that the way Houston is?
Houston is, I can't believe that I actually chose a hobby that the biggest festival of the hobby comes to my backyard. My luck does not run that way.
Yeah.
But, this year I'm actually taking the entire week off. I've got classes for 4 of the 7 days, all-day classes. And I've never taken advantage of that like that. So I'm calling it Quilt College.
That's really great.
But yeah, Houston has got a lot to offer. I've lived here for almost 22 years, and I just can't imagine living anywhere else. Yeah. Except that I can do without the heat.
Yeah, well, that's true. But like, where are you going to move? Like, there's the people. It's hot or cold everywhere, right?
Exactly.
All right. So tell me a little bit about Zen Tangler. What is this? I'm at the website, and then you've got Zen Quill Tangler, which is the Facebook group. But what is Zen Tangle?
Okay, Zen Tangle. You had a monk, and this sounds like a bad joke. I promise it's not, and I don't know all the history off the top of my head. But you had a monk, which brings it to Zen, and then you had somebody, I think she was a graphic artist. The monk was male, the graphic artist was female.
Yeah.
And they began a relationship, and Zen tangling is like when you see all these adult color books.
Yeah.
Coloring books. Right. That's a lot of Zen tangle.
Right. It's kind of these elaborate designs that are kind of very intricate, what it looks like, right?
You may have something full of, pebbles or full of stripes or just an echoing design.
Yeah.
I think it brings over to quilting quite easily.
Yeah.
But the biggest difference between Zentangle and quilting is that quilting, when you're drawing, you can pick your pen up and put it down somewhere else.
Right.
Quilting is not so easy to do.
So they're a company. You can go to zentangle.com, zentangle.com. They're like a whole thing. You can get books and classes and all of that. And you reached out to them to do what?
I wanted to begin a Zen Quilt Tangler Facebook group. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to, because I'd been listening to your podcasts, I didn't want to step on their toes legally.
Good job. You make me so proud. So you reached out to them and said you want to take what they're doing and do it for quilting, and you're not selling anything, you're just embracing it and promoting it and loving it and all that. Now, did they do any kind of like licensing deal with you, or did they just say, go ahead, awesome? Did they want you to become a certified teacher because they have one of those programs? Sort of what kind of, how formal, or how did they respond when you wanted to do this? Or did they just like, sure?
Well, at the very bottom of their website page, they have a section about copyright. I don't remember exactly, or licensing or something of
right.
something. And I clicked on that, and they have a lot of rules and regulations and
intellectual property guidelines. Here we are.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. And I read it, but just to make sure, because my pockets aren't very deep. Just to make sure, I did email them and say, I read this, but this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. I'm not looking to make money, but can I do this and call it Zen Quilt Tangler?
Yeah.
And said, yes, you're not interfering with any IP guidelines or anything. So, and then they referred me to their page.
Yeah.
But it was important to me to have that blessing.
Okay, so interesting. So they say, I'm at their intellectual property guidelines, that we give guidance on how you can create inspired art, but we'll sell them. We do not copyright our tangles, the patterns.
Right.
Which is interesting and weird because it's going to get weirder fast. We support small-scale, non-commercial sharing of the Zentangle method. And that's you, right? Your small-scale, non-commercial sharing of their method in the quilting space. And then they have sharing and teaching guide. They've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Right. They say, we understand that once you learn the Zentangle method, you may want to share it with others. And they have certified teachers. And they also have, if you want to share it, we ask that you use our name when describing this method as Zentangle method, use our vocabulary, mention our website. So I suspect you're doing all of those. And don't represent yourself as a certified Zentangle teacher, which is interesting. Right. And then they have the Zentangle Apprentice Classroom Packs for an educational setting. Okay, cool. Do you think you'll ever become a certified Zentangle teacher?
No, drawing is not my focus. It's not my forte. I do try and practice a little bit here and there, like on breaks at work or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'll do one a day or something. But it's not really where my focus is. Where interest lies.
Got it. Okay, so we have to they have read our trademark, copyright, and patents. So we have to go there, right? We can't not. So they have gotten a trademark in Zentangle, and then there's their phrase, anything is possible one stroke at a time, certified Zentangle teacher, CZT, Zentangle apprentice, Zendala, and Bijou, with Bijou's image. I'm not sure who Bijou is. Zentomology. Wow. So that's a lot. I mean, if you think about, those are about $300 a pop, plus attorney's fees. How many is that? That's one. And their logo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of them. Yeah. So that's interesting. So they care about that to me tells me they care about their business.
Yes.
Okay, so then they say, many aspects of the Zentangle method, including our materials and teaching tools, as well as material on the site, are covered by copyright, which is owned by Zentangle, all rights reserved. So on the first page, they said, our patterns we're not copywriting anything about our patterns. But then on the second page, they say they do, which I think is really interesting too, right? That's interesting and weird.
Yeah, it's kind of, this is more your forte than mine, but it's a little contradictory.
A little contradictory. And then, we so have to interview them, they say on patent, they say, we have a patent pending on our Zentangle teaching method. So patents cost a lot of money. They cost, $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 to get a patent on. So they are spending a lot of money protecting their thing that they do, even though they were super nice to you and we're like, yeah, sure. It's interesting, right? Don't you think that's interesting? I think that's weird and interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It says, we do not copyright our tangles, patterns that have been deconstructed according to the So they don't, I think they probably can't copyright the tangle itself if it's a deconstructed pattern, because the elements aren't going to be, shapes aren't protectable. So I imagine if you're having little bits of it, it won't be protectable. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about what a tangle is, or a Zentangle. And yet they have an app too. Wow, they're just crazy. This is so interesting. Is this a big method, a big deal? Zentangle Mosaic.
It's And the first way I heard about it, my 99-year-old grandfather in Memphis, Tennessee, does Zentangle. Lives in a retirement home, and he does it. He used to turn wood on a wood lathe, beautiful work.
Yeah.
But he just can't stand and do that as much as he'd like to. So, this keeps him busy and occupied.
Right.
And
it keeps you it's creative and right. And you're kind of doing these interesting spaces. So interesting. I so don't understand it at all. It's very intricate.
But some of the designs lend itself to quilt designs quite
hugely. These are I'm so surprised they haven't marketed to the quilters, because it seems like you're doing a lot where you're not picking up the pen, that it's about continuous line. Is that right? It seems like from their video.
Look at the one called Rick's Paradox.
Rick's Paradox, okay.
Rick's Paradox. RICK' Paradox.
Okay, I'll look for it. Okay, I'm just so interested in them. That's so interesting. And so now you've got this Zentangle. Okay, Rick's Paradox, Zentangle. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's kind of very
that's
swoopy.
total straight edge ruler work, easy as it can be.
Easy as it can be. Yes. Yeah. It's true. It is very much like it should be marketed to quilters as a tool that they should be thinking about. It's interesting that... Okay, so Zentangle. So you started this group on Facebook. They said sure. Let's go back to... see if I can get back to the group, because I've gone... Okay, so... Oops, then Zentangle. So it's a small group. We just started. Right. 14 members so far. I wonder at what point they're going to be more interested in you, right? As you get this group bigger. That will be interesting.
I will say that I do teach free motion quilting now and then. And, I tell them, well, I've got these two groups.
Yeah. And you can add to it. Yeah. You can. So Zentangle, do you use their do you have them buy anything? Is it just the idea of it, or sort of tell me how you're using Zentangle in your work.
Well, like I said, I look at the designs, and I've got a few books that I use for inspiration, and I look at it, and I try and draw it on a paper first,
right,
to see how much traveling is involved.
And you've got this cute seahorse that clearly is inspired by Zentangle, because it's got all the different kind of shapes, and it's adorable. So do you feel so let's back up a little bit. So I think this is all super interesting. So interesting. So we talked about inspired by to begin with. That's what we were going to be talking about with this. So you're pulling from Angela Walters and Leah Day and Zentangle and Lori Kennedy. And sort of how much freedom do you, first of all, you have all the freedom you can want in doing your own work. Doesn't matter. Right. Nobody cares. Do you think if you put together your own book or your own class or started to sell things, does that change your relationship with each of these artists? And how much do you think you need to change? How much you need to credit with them? How much you need to change it? Sort of, are these just in the public domain, do you think? Tell me a little bit more about what you think about the materials that you use and being inspired by them.
As far as things being in the public domain, I feel like just because you pull it off the internet doesn't mean somebody didn't put it there to begin with.
That's true.
And they should be credited, Yeah. There's a book that's been around for thousands of years that says a man is worth his pay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's interesting. I think that it's problematic from the copyright side of it. Because sometimes a man is worth his pay is totally true, but copyright only cares about creative work, not labor. So if you worked really hard on something and you put a lot of money into it and it didn't have enough creativity, then copyright's not. It's a very sort of limited view of what work equals. Does that make sense? It's only it would have to be say the phrase again for me.
A man is worth his pay?
A creative man is worth his pay is what they would put. So so it's really weird. And then what is considered creativity gets defined as, is it creative enough? Does it have enough stuff in it to be creative? to be
By
protectable.
creative, you mean unique?
And that's what's weird about it, because it's not like patent. It doesn't have to be super unique. It has to have enough creativity. So you can't be already in the public domain. So I think about like some of the stuff that Leah Day does and some of the stuff that Angela Walters does. Those are just really common things that we all can do. Like they don't lock it up, so you have to get a license from them to use it.
If I can just interject though.
Sure.
I do always give credit and tell people who inspire me.
Totally. I think that's great.
Because that gives them a source to go and look
Totally.
at. I'm not trying to say I'm the free motion queen.
No. And I think that's great. I think Lori Kennedy is really interesting because her stuff is so unique. They're clearly creative. They're these little creatures. She created them. There is no doubt it looks like hers. And I think that's a bit different than Leah Day's. Even Leah Day says that, right? She's teaching techniques that are like, how to do something, right? That's why you're buying her book, is because she's teaching you how to do stuff.
Lori Day, Leah Day is the algebra class, whereas Lori Kennedy is the word problem.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, right? So, I mean, I would think that if I started to use her exact doodle of a bird and I was selling my stuff, she might get upset. But if I was taking the concept of how you make a bird and I was making my own bird, that would be okay, right? So I think about your mermaid, right? You've taken concepts, or your seahorse, the seahorse. Right. You took concepts of how to make the seahorse from Lori Kennedy, and you took different bits from different places. That seahorse is yours, right? Mm-hmm. It isn't that like you can't do the seahorse because you borrowed from a bunch of different people. But that's your own seahorse. That would be my thought, is that you can kind of see the different parts. Like you can identify, that's from Zentangle. Oh, that would be like, you could do that because you know how to do Lori Kennedy's strategy of how to make a little animal, right? But I don't think it means you can't. I think it's yours. At some point it is. Tell me that I'm so bad at memory things. Tell me the phrase again.
A man is worth his pay.
Right. And I think that seahorse qualifies.
So,
do you know what I'm saying? That like a creative man is worth his pay. That somehow that is yours. You know,
a man is worth his credit. A man's creativity deserves the credit.
That's right.
And and I respect the restrictions. If I want to practice it at home, that's fine. Just like when you buy fabric, and it's licensed fabric for ABC character, and you can't sell it making Mickey Mouse fabric teddy bears.
Yeah.
Thing. But I could make one and give it to somebody.
Yeah.
That's what
I think it's these boundaries that get so interesting. So, Leah Day teaches us how to do stuff. Lori Kennedy teaches us how to do stuff. How far can we go with what they're teaching us? That's really the question of today's day, right? Is how far can you go with it? And I think that by making it your own, merging your creativity with something else, some of the stuff's in the public domain, some of it isn't. Understanding when it is in the public domain, like you didn't copy the seahorse, I would imagine, from Lori Kennedy. You made your own seahorse, I imagine, right? And so you wouldn't want somebody else to claim your seahorse and then sell it. Like you would probably find that offensive, right? That like you put it out there and then somebody made a book about seahorses and are using your seahorse. That would probably, I would imagine, upset you. Sometimes people are just flattered and they think that's fine, right? Mm-hmm. But if it sells 1 million copies and they buy a huge mansion because they used your seahorse, I suspect that would upset you a little bit. Particularly if they didn't give you credit and they were claiming it as their own. So, I mean, I think that this is really interesting. We have with the blocks, with our repeating blocks, we know what's in the public domain. We know what a 9-patch is. We know what a log cabin is. We all use it. I think with the free motion vocabulary, it is new enough in the sense of it's kind of, I mean, it's been around, but right now it's kind of a thing that the question is, when is it part of all of our vocabulary, pebbles, a swirly whatever, and when is it protectable? And so I think that's a really interesting space to be in, and sort of where you play, because you've seen all of this. You know them because you use them, and then you make your own stuff. So
I'm understanding your statement to say when is it okay to say tissue, and when can you not call it Kleenex?
Exactly. That's right. When do you have to give credit to Leah Day because you used it in a quilt? And when is it just, well, she taught me that technique, and so I don't have to credit her? Because the thing that's so interesting about this is when you look at the designers, like Leah Day isn't telling you where she got her stuff from.
Uh-huh.
Right? Lori Kennedy isn't saying, maybe she is, but inspired by, right? We don't have a provenance that says when you get a Sam Hunter pattern, oh, this is where it came from, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's just like when we use it, we're expected to have provenance. And I think that's okay. I like provenance. I like attribution. But I think there's also points where you don't have to give attribution because it's just a common thing. You know, like a zipper. Like if you put a zipper in to a dress, you don't have to be like inspired by a person who taught me how to put the zipper in, right? It's just a technique, right?
It's a technique.
And techniques aren't protected. So techniques aren't protected at all by really anything. That's why I think it's so interesting that the Tangi, what is it called? The Zentangle has that they're trying to get a patent on their method, which is really interesting, right? Because they're trying to patent the technique of what they do so that they can keep others from doing it, which is interesting. It's not very zen, is all I'm saying. It's not really zen, is all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I think of zen as like very calm and peaceful and not suing for patent infringement. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I don't know. You've led us into really interesting spaces today. I didn't expect to go. Do you feel that way too? You never know where these are going to go. Well, I think you're so... okay, so the last thing is we were going to talk about, and then, oh, my goodness, we've already been an hour. That's craziness. Okay, wow. So the last question I have for you is, you had said on the Facebook page, because you're part of the Quilting Army, awesome. I love it. Yay, Quilting Army, I love it. That we always see businesses with long arms, but we don't see them with domestic free motion quilters. And I think that's interesting and true because skill is skill. You think about like Krista Watson, she doesn't put her stuff on a long arm. There's a lot of people who aren't using long arms to do amazing work. And I'm curious if there are people out there and you who are quilting. Like, why is that? Is that because it's just this is not financially, you know, like long arms allow you to do things fairly quickly. Is it because it's financially not that feasible, like it's not worth it? Or is it just a stigma? Like, what is it exactly, do you think, that is?
I don't think it's a stigma, but the fact that you can lay out a long arm and a long arm machine runs faster, you know, more stitches per minute than the average. Now, I think Janome put one out that's got, I don't know how many stitches a minute, but a whole lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can take, say, an 80 by 100 quilt.
Yeah.
And you could put that on a long arm and knock that out in 3-4 hours, depending on quilting, of course. Whereas free motion, you've got a lot more to do, and the machine works slower doing it.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think it's perceptible to
and you'd still be charging like 2 cents a square inch, so it's just a lot of time for doing the work.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to get rich doing it. I would do it more to help a friend out, or maybe support my habit or something like that.
Right, exactly. Well, interesting. Well, as you think about that, and you're also considering doing a free motion guild, would you come back and tell us how things are going and check in with us? I would totally love that. I have had fun with this conversation. This is great. Yeah. These are questions I've been having for a long time and just really haven't explored this way, which really is, what are all these people who are teaching us how to free motion quilt expect us to be doing with it? And again, I do know what Leah thinks, but I'm curious as we go, you know, when is it ours and when is it theirs? You know, it's all a yours versus mine kind of thing, right? And it's interesting. Boundaries are really interesting. And the Zentangler is very odd as a company, I have to say, with their generosity and their zenness and their super overprotectiveness of what they do is super interesting. So we'll have to, and thank you for sharing that with me. That is really interesting. Sure. Very cool. Well, I hope you have a great day. Are you going to be able to quilt a little bit today, do you think?
I've already quilted. I'm going to go quilt some more this afternoon, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
My guild, the Kingwood Guild, is having a show in 3 weeks from today.
Oh, cool.
And I've got 3 quilts to quilt before then.
Oh, my goodness.
Me and my big mouth decided we'd put 4 quilts out.
Oh, my gosh. That's like, now that's just like pressure quilting, which I'm not good at all.
No,
I don't like panic quilting. It's not fun.
No.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I hope you had a good time, and it was really fun chatting with you. It was so much fun.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I look forward to talking again.
Okay, cool. Are you cool with us posting this? Do you want to review it before it's posted, or you feel comfortable with everything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Send me, if you haven't already, send me your bio and a few pics of the things that you're doing, including things we talked about. So the ballerina would be awesome, and a copy of the seahorse would be awesome. So we can post that on and we'll put you'll have a web page on our website.
What?
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Cool. Also, send in that email, because my students won't have it, links to your Facebook group. So if you want to have that as part of it too, you can do that.
Okay, if I can figure out how to do that.
Yes, I know. It's true. I don't even know if you can, but because clearly I couldn't find him without your help today. All right, fabulous. I am so happy to meet you. I will see you probably. I will be in Houston, so we'll see. I might be able to see you when we're there.
All right, we definitely need to get together, and I'll take you to my secret Tex-Mex place.
Oh, I love Houston. I love food. Because I'm a California girl. I just eat Mexican food like the entire time I'm there, because Louisiana has okay Mexican food, but like not breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know what I'm saying? I start with the breakfast tacos every day and just work my way up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love.
Yeah, gotta go. And California Mexican is totally different from Tex-Mex.
Totally is. I know. It is. It's so great. I like.
You're ruined.
Yeah. It's awesome. All right, cool. Well, I'll see you soon. And thanks so much for coming. I think this was great. I think this is a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I do have one question. I don't know if this should be included on recording, but when do you think you'll be posting this interview?
Good question. When I will let you know. We're trying to stay ahead of things. We got really backlogged, but we're back on. But I will try to get things done. I don't have control of that because my law students process it. So I will try to let you know. And then when it is, did you want to try to have it sooner rather than later?
No, I just want to be able to tell my family when to look for it.
Oh, cool. No, we'll let you know. You'll get an email and you'll get links and all kinds of things. So yeah, it's really not up to me at all.
Okay, that's
cool.
Fine.
But so you'll get an email and notice and hashtags and all kinds of things.
Okay, so you need a bio,
yeah,
and pics.
The pics, yes. And any hashtags you want us to use? I think you already did that on the thing, and then we'll send it to you to let you know when it's happening.
Okay,
awesome.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. You have a great day.
Oh, you too. Take care. Bye.
All right. Goodbye. How do we turn this off?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm going to go. Bye-bye.
Bye. So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.